Christian University has asked the Alexandria-based federal court to dismiss a July complaint filed by Louisiana Christian University in Pineville, which asked the court to make a determination of if their use of the acronym LCU constitutes copyright infringement. Lubbock Christian is citing a lack of personal jurisdiction. Louisiana Christian brought the copyright infringement complaint forward after it claimed that last December, Lubbock Christian's president contacted the Pineville school's president, claiming that the use of the LCU acronym encroaches on trademark protected property. This past July, the Pineville school said the Lubbock school threatened to sue, so they filed the federal complaint. Yesterday, Lubbock Christian responded, calling Louisiana Christian's filing a race to the courthouse, and said that since Lubbock Christian is a non-resident based out of state, that a Louisiana court cannot force litigation for a Texas-based institution. A date to hear the motion has not been set yet.